Hello everyone, class is in session. That's right, I'm back again for the second day in a row because Adam Pacitti is on holiday. Lovely for him, but there is still SmackDown to analyse and grade. So that means that it's time for SmackDown Graded. Makes sense, really. SmackDown this week emanated from Ontario, California. I thought the only Ontario was in Canada, but I've been proven wrong. My North American knowledge of geography has just let me down once again, and let me tell you, it's been several times throughout my life. I'll never forget wandering around the backwoods of Florida. I'm making up a story that's never happened before. The opening segment, as we know, traditionally kicked off without any wrestling, but it was alright because it was only the most watchable, must-see talk show segment in wrestling history. That's right, Miz TV. Miz hit the ring, and his guests were not a pair of superstars that I think naturally fit into a talk show environment, but it still worked in a bit of a funny way. It was the Bludgeon Brothers, the largely silent, hammer-wielding, menacing, big scary Bludgeon Brothers. Not the chattiest of folk, but they made it work. Miz in this segment was pretty brilliant. He basically did this whole Miz TV thing where he tries to stir up his guests and cause a bit of drama while keeping a sizable distance from the Bludgeon Brothers. He stayed way across the other end of the ring. He was cracking jokes that just weren't getting a reaction from the pair, and it was generally pretty good. It reminded me, right, okay, this reminds me of a personal story. About a month ago, I was on a train down to Lincolnshire to perform with my band, American Rachel, whatever, I'm the front man. No big deal, guys, no big deal at all. On the way, my train stopped off for about an hour in a little village, I've forgotten the name, and there was happily a little pub right next to the train station. I thought, you know what, it's a lovely sunny day, I'm gonna pop inside, get myself a pint, and then sit in the beer garden and wait for my train. And that's exactly what I did, and when I ventured into the pub, it was full of terrifying, silent local men, just all looking at me as I walked in, and I felt exactly, I imagine, how The Miz does in this opening segment. I was being judged from the moment I stepped in to the moment I left the premises, and boy howdy, I could not leave quickly enough. Miz was happily bailed out by his nemesis, Bryan, who came along and said, look, I'm not scared of the SmackDown Tag Team Champions, no matter how big and menacing they are. Just the only question left to answer is, which one of you wants to fight me tonight? And it was Luke Harper, sorry, just Harper. Harper said, I will, and that was our main event for later on. I'm gonna give this opening segment a B+. I think, yeah, it was a bit of a weird setup with two largely silent characters in a talk show segment, but it was played off pretty well, and everyone played their roles to perfection. Miz as the smarmy heel, the SmackDown Tag Team Champions as the menacing silent ones, and Bryan as the hero that everyone wants to see win. B+, look, no complaints. Next up, straight into a match between Rusev, the #1 contender for AJ Styles' WWE Championship, and his opponent Xavier Woods. We had a brief little promo before the match backstage where Xavier drank a pancake shake. He drank it and it all went round his mouth and his teeth, and you could see him going like, oh no, what have I done? The match was totally fine, of course. Both Woods and Rusev are very capable in the ring and can often raise their game, like on pay-per-views, to an even better level, but they sort of stayed within the realms of TV match land for this TV match, and it was totally fine. There was one particularly strange bit where Rusev sold and leaned across the ropes as if in a 619 position, and on the outside, Kofi and Big E held up like a comic book speech bubble that said, I think, ouch, or something like that in front of his face. Pretty funny. But, you know, well, if he'd lost, I'd have been quite annoyed. But luckily, Rusev won, which I think was a good decision because it keeps him looking strong for his match against Styles. He made Xavier Woods tap out clean with the accolade. I'm going to give this match a B. It was pretty straightforward stuff, but, you know, the booking was a sensible decision. It might have been a little bit predictable, but I think I'd rather it was predictable and Rusev win than have him shockingly lose, especially with his match against Styles looming large in the future. I'm just a little bit shell-shocked because after covering Raw every week, when everything's a bit bizarre and stressful all the time, SmackDown so far was following just an entirely logical course. It was really nice. It was like having a week off. Then we had a backstage where Naomi and Lana they're sort of like, I was about to say frenemies, but not frenemies, because frenemies are like friends with a bit of a rivalry, aren't they? They weren't frenemies so much as just enemies who sort of hang out. Weirdly. Yeah, enemies who sort of hang out. But they're slowly becoming friends, and they were encouraged to become better friends by the cast of Glow, who showed up to promote season 2 of the Netflix series. Alison Brie was there. I'm a tremendously big fan of her. I think she's just a wonderful, smashing woman. Really nice, great actress as well. That sounds so schoolboy and so teenage and so desperate. But no, Alison Brie led the way, and her and the rest of the cast all said, maybe you guys can get along more, and then maybe success will, you know, meet you. I'm not going to give this segment a grade just because I'll be honest with you, and it's a travesty because, as you know, my job is wrestling. I probably should have watched the first season of Glow, but I haven't yet. I've heard very good things about it, but at the same time, I don't know how good this segment was. It could have been filled with nuanced references to Glow. It could have had 0 references that made sense, and I don't know either way, so I'm just not going to give it any grade at all. I'm truly sorry. Next up, the most disappointing match on the card, not because of the action itself necessarily, but just because of what could have been. This was originally going to be Jeff Hardy versus Shinsuke Nakamura, and instead we got Jeff Hardy versus Eric Young, a match straight out of TNA from like 6 to 8 years ago. Yeah, it was a bit strange. Essentially what happened was, apparently, Nakamura got bit by a security dog before the show. That's not a storyline. That's legit, and he wasn't cleared to wrestle because of it. Sensible, you know, safety precautions and that sort of thing, but I'd rather have seen that match than this one. At the same time, even if this match had been good, I would have been a little bit disappointed, but maybe more accepting of it. But this match wasn't good. I mean, it was a bit sloppy, guys. It was a little bit sloppy. Unfortunately, I'm going to give this a D+. The action was pretty sloppy, and I didn't really enjoy the finish either, where the Usos got involved and started brawling with Sanity on the outside, a sort of continuation of their conflict from last week. And then one of the Usos just got in the ring and just tackled Eric Young and started beating him up as well. And that was it. It was a DQ. Jeff was all right with it. He was all right with his title match being ruined, even though he's meant to be, you know, a babyface and should be proud to defend the belt like Rollins was with the IC belt over on Raw. Are you a coward, Jeff? Are you a coward? Is he a coward? Then we headed straight into the next match of the night because Paige pulled a bit of a Teddy Long, player, holler, holler, player. We're going to have a tag team match. So it was a 6-man tag team match between the 3 members of Sanity, Jeff Hardy and the Usos. This match was a lot better than the previous one, thankfully. The action was a lot more crisp and flowing, and I got to see, you know, Killian Dane, as someone I actually know in real life, wrestle in the ring on SmackDown. Really exciting stuff. He did well. The Usos did really well, keeping the energy up too, and Jeff Hardy finished things off with a big old swanton from the top. He kept his t-shirt in his hand as well, because he ripped his t-shirt off because everyone in the crowd got to go, my goodness, he is a sexual man. And then he jumped off, didn't have time to throw his t-shirt away, so he just held it as well. I thought that fit his character pretty well. Gonna throw it away? Nah, I can't be bothered. Off I go. Tum-ty-tum. Tum-ty-tum. I'm going to give this a C+. Originally, I thought it was going to be in the B bracket until the finish. I did have a little problem with the finish, however. I think Sanity should have won, or at least not lost clean. They should have run away or something, or beaten the guys up too much, beaten the baby faces up too much, so the ref had to call for a DQ, or some sort of finish that made them look a little bit dominant still, considering it's only been about a week since their debut, so wasn't too happy with the finish. The action was okay. It was just sort of a straightforward TV match. So I think C+ is a fair reflection. Next up, we had Becky Lynch versus Sonya Deville. Oh, man, I didn't generate this desk. Obviously, I'm not an editor. I don't know how to do any of this. Sam did. And I'd just like to point out, and I know you're not going to believe me, but I did not request for the picture of Becky Lynch or the action figure of Becky Lynch to be decorating the scenery. However, I am a big fan of hers, and I'm glad that she won. She won this match. It was a pretty decent match as well. I feel a little bit for Sonya just because her whole gimmick is the MMA woman, and yet Ronda Rousey came in, an actual proper ex-UFC champion, and also Shayna Baszler as well, a woman who just carries that air of MMA menace, far more naturally than Sonya does. I don't doubt that Sonya has an MMA background. You can tell from her strikes and that sort of thing, but there's two other women who seem to have the backing of the company a little bit more. So I do feel a bit sorry for her, but at the same time, I felt more sorry for Becky Lynch when she didn't win the Women's Money in the Bank briefcase, and I'm glad that she picked up a bit of a dominant win here, despite the efforts of Mandy Rose on the outside, who tried to get involved and distract Sonya Deville, but Becky shook all that off, slapped on the disarmer, and won clean. Submission victory. Yes. I'm so Alan Partridge today. In short, I'm going to give this match a B. It was a decent bout, and it was the right result too. I've not got much more to say on this one than that. Next up, oh my word, we had a solo James Ellsworth promo. Well, I couldn't wait to see what happened, I'll give him that. Ellsworth hit the ring and said, basically he's got no apologies for what he did to Asuka, but he wants to point out to everybody that he loves and respects women and that the feeling is entirely mutual. And then he winked at the camera again, but still hasn't learned how to wink properly. I don't know if you can. I don't know if you're genetically unable to wink. I don't know if you can teach yourself how to. Certainly not in about 2 weeks. So they asked him to do it again, and again he just blinked at the camera. That has to be a rib. Then Paige came out and literally went, what are you doing? She didn't even deliver it much differently to that. She was just walking down the ramp, her music was playing and she just went, what are you doing? It was really good. It actually cracked me up a little bit. Then Paige got in the ring and revealed that there's going to be a rematch between Asuka and Carmella at the next pay-per-view for the SmackDown Women's Championship, which I enjoy because obviously Asuka got screwed last time by James Ellsworth, and then Ellsworth went, no, I know the real reason you're out here. He took his shirt off and revealed his body, which is probably within the same bracket as my body in terms of attractiveness. Certainly nothing on not a patch on like any other wrestler in the locker room, but you know, fair play to him. He's got bottle, he's got balls. He took his shirt off and stood there like a lovely brown hot dog, and then and then Paige went, yeah, you're right, actually, I was going to ask you for a date. How does next Tuesday sound? And Ellsworth went, yeah, it's fine by me. And then she turned away and he was like, yes, got myself a date with a cool goth woman from England. And then she went, oh, by the way, it's not a date. You've got a match with Asuka next week. I'm looking forward to that match, sort of in a perverse way. I think that Asuka's going to kick the hell out of Ellsworth and it's going to be very entertaining indeed. So yeah, no complaints with the booking. Few complaints with kind of the promo. I find both Paige and Ellsworth the sort of person that you watch do a promo and you're just praying that it goes all right and that they don't slip up at any point. And it's kind of a roller coaster because you're thinking, that line was fine. Don't mess up the next one. Don't talk too loud, regulate your volume and all that sort of stuff. And when they get through it, normally it's fine, but they can stumble a little bit. And there were a few little mishaps here, but the large sort of sense of the promo overall was pretty good. I'm going to give it a B- just because Ellsworth is always a bit dodgy on the mic and Paige is sometimes a bit dodgy on the mic too. She's quite inconsistent, but I really enjoy the booking. So that pushes it into the B bracket for me, but it's a B- still. Asuka versus Carmella at the next pay-per-view and Asuka versus Ellsworth next week. Hooray! And finally, the main event of the evening, Daniel Bryan versus just Harper versus Harper, just Harper, no first name. This was a good match. It's easy to forget actually that Harper used to be an indie darling, and still kind of is in a way, but used to be like a proper indie darling. He was known as Brody Lee on the indies for a while, was really good in promotions like Chikara, where they let him be a bit more free in the ring and show off his speed and, you know, varied moveset a lot more than they do in this tag team with Rowan. But in this match, Harper was allowed to cut loose a little bit more. He and Bryan were exchanging like quite a lot of fast sequences and stuff. It was pretty damn exciting. And then, unfortunately, Rowan got involved and caused the DQ. We've just seen a main event DQ finish over on Monday Night Raw, and now last night we saw one on SmackDown as well. So that was a little bit disappointing. However, as disappointed as I was, I am still going to give this segment a B+ because something happened to really raise the grade of it after the match. Kane came back. Bloody Kane. He fought off the Bludgeon Brothers, helped Daniel Bryan to his feet, and they hugged it out. And then Paige came back and announced officially that Team Hell No have reformed. And not just that, but they'll be getting a tag team title shot against the Bludgeon Brothers, I think at Extreme Rules at the next pay-per-view. So Team Hell No are back together. Who would have seen that coming, I guess? B+. Let's take a look at the show's overall grade. So on the whole, I'm going to give this show a B-. I think it was better than Monday Night Raw, certainly this week, but it was also a lot less eventful than Monday Night Raw as well. It was more safe. A lot of things were like all right rather than extremely good or extremely bad. But on the whole, the good outweighed the bad, and it was a pretty decent show. At the same time, I want to mention one or two things that just weren't on the show that kind of dragged it down a little bit for me. The obvious one is Nakamura, who got bit by a dog, so I can't really complain there. It wasn't really his fault. Maybe it was. Maybe he was challenging the dog to a fight. I don't know. But the other big thing for me was Andrade Cien Almas, who's really not appeared on SmackDown as much as I'd have wanted him to recently. He did have one of those backstage promos on the phone alongside Zelina Vega, but it's about 20 seconds of screen time, and I just think he deserves so much more, and I hope he gets it because he's not done anything since he debuted, really. Also, quickly before I leave, I just want to touch on the potential of Team Hell No. While I'm excited, and as excited as everybody for Team Hell No, I can't help but think, will this become a bit stale quicker than we'd like to imagine? Kane is quite a lot older now than he was even during the time of Team Hell No. That was about half a decade ago now, if not a little bit longer. And I hope it goes well. But at the same time, I hope it doesn't derail Daniel Bryan from a big main event singles run too much at the same time. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can follow me on Twitter at JackTheJobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic. And never forget as well to, well, first of all, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, but mainly never forget to join us.